Welcome to the Hot News Channel, where we strip away the noise to analyze today's breaking stories. It is February 9, 2026.
And let's be clear right from the jump. Today isn't just another day in the news cycle where we read a few headlines and move on. If you are paying attention to the signal rather than the noise, we are looking at a pivotal moment in history. We are watching the convergence of three massive, destabilizing events that are shaking the very foundations of the global order.
We aren't just looking at headlines, we are looking at a fundamental restructuring of global power and public trust. We have the implosion of the official narrative surrounding Jeffrey Epstein due to massive new document dumps. We have the potential collapse of the UK government as a direct result of those files. And, perhaps most terrifyingly, we have a ticking clock toward a hot war between the US and Iran.
It's a perfect storm. You have the intelligence world being exposed, the political world in London crumbling, and the military world gearing up for a conflict that could spiral out of control. It's all happening at once, and it's all connected. So let's not waste any time. We need to start with the data that is rewriting history.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're starting with the Epstein files. For years, the official story has been suicide, case closed. But the new documents that have just dropped are forcing everyone to re-examine that conclusion, not based on conspiracy theories, but based on hard government data.
And this is where the timeline gets incredibly messy for the official narrative. And I want to be precise here because the details, they really, really matter.
Right. We need to look at what analysts Kim Iverson and Sabby Sabs have uncovered. They've zeroed in on a specific document from the Department of Justice. It's a press release draft announcing Epstein's death. Now, here's the kicker. The draft is dated Friday, August 9th, 2019.
And just to remind everyone of the official timeline, Epstein was found dead on the morning of Saturday, August 10th, 2019.
Exactly. So you have the DOJ drafting a press release about his death a full day before he supposedly died. Now, I know what some people say. I can hear the skeptics already. They'll say it's a typo. Bureaucracy makes mistakes. Someone hit the wrong key.
And I would normally agree with that skepticism. I mean, government agencies are not exactly known for their precision, are they? However, Sabby Sabs points out something crucial here that makes the typo theory incredibly difficult to sustain.
Okay.
It's not just a wrong number. The document says Friday, August 9th.
Break that down for us. Why is that so significant?
Well, think about how you write a date. If you are sitting at your desk on Saturday the 10th and you make a mistake, you might type August 9th by accident. It's a simple slip.
Sure, happens all the time.
But would you also type Friday? If it's actually Saturday and you type Friday, August 9th, you are making two simultaneous errors that perfectly align with the calendar date of the previous day.
That is a critical distinction. You're saying that in legal and government documents, getting the day of the week and the numerical date to align on the wrong day is statistically, well, it's highly unusual.
It's extremely unusual. It suggests that the document was prepared on Friday. It implies premeditation or, pre-knowledge.
So it wasn't a mistake made in the moment.
Exactly. You don't draft a death announcement for a high-profile prisoner just for practice on a Friday afternoon unless you know that the script calls for a death on Saturday morning.
And it gets stranger, doesn't it? The language in the draft.
It does. The press release draft uses language like pronounced dead shortly thereafter, which matches the final release almost word for word, but the timing is completely off.
So it really raises the question, was the script written before the act?
It certainly looks that way. If the press release is pre-written, the event isn't an accident, it's a scheduled operation. And this ties directly into the orange figure anomaly.
The orange figure.
Yes, and this is something that CBS News, of all places, has brought to light, citing video logs from the Metropolitan Correctional Center, or MCC.
This is fascinating because it gives us a visual of the scene. Kim Iverson highlighted this report. We have video logs from the night of August 9th, again, the night before the official death, and the logs describe an orange-colored shape moving up the stairs to the locked tier where Epstein was housed. The timestamp on that is 10:39 p.m.
Now, you need to visualize the MCC to understand why this matters so much. The Special Housing Unit, the SHU, is a fortress inside a fortress. It's locked down. There is no casual foot traffic. No one just wanders in.
So what is an orange shape in that context?
In that context, orange usually signifies a jumpsuit, an inmate jumpsuit. But the official story, the one we've been told for years, is that Epstein was alone, the tier was locked down, and no one entered or left.
But that's not true, is it? We have the Bureau of Prisons records that contradict that.
Exactly. There was an analysis of the medical logs showing that an inmate was transferred out of the prison to a hospital the night before the official death.
So let's stack the data here, just to be clear. You have a press release written on Friday.
Check.
You have an unidentified orange figure going up the stairs into the secure unit on Friday night.
Check.
And you have a medical transfer of an unnamed inmate going out of the unit on that same Friday night.
It all points in one direction, and this aligns terrifyingly well with the 4chan leak.
Right. We have to talk about the 4chan leak. For years, people dismissed this as just internet noise because, well, it's 4chan, you have to take it with a huge grain of salt.
Of course. But now we have identified the poster as MCC officer Robert Grzalfa.
And that changes the weight of the evidence entirely. This isn't some anonymous troll. This is a verified guard who was there on duty.
He posted anonymously on the day of the death, August 10th, 2019. He claimed a trick van arrived at the prison.
A trip bin.
Yeah, a transport van. He said it did not sign in, which is a huge breach of protocol. You can't just drive into a federal prison. And it took someone out in a wheelchair.
Someone in a wheelchair.
Yes. And he specifically mentioned a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van. Grzalfa said, and I'm quoting his sentiment here, I think they switched him out.
Whoa.
So when you layer that eyewitness testimony from a verified officer over the medical logs showing a transfer out and the video log of an orange figure going up the stairs, the switch theory moves from wild speculation to a plausible scenario supported by multiple data points.
It suggests a body double or a swap. Someone went out the orange figure and someone else went out in the wheelchair.
And if that's the case, then all the forensic inconsistencies suddenly make a lot more sense. Let's look at the noose, for example. Glenn Beck did a really deep dive into the Inspector General's report on this.
The famous bedsheet noose.
Or, more accurately, the lack thereof. The Inspector General's report states, in black and white, that the noose found at the scene was determined not to be the noose used in the death.
Wait, say that again?
The noose that was collected as evidence was not the weapon. The actual weapon is missing.
How? How do you lose the primary piece of evidence and the highest profile death in federal custody in a generation?
You don't. You just don't. Unless, of course, you are trying to obscure the method of death, or maybe the fact that there wasn't a suicide at all. If the item labeled suicide weapon doesn't match the forensic marks on the neck, the entire suicide narrative just falls apart physically.
And then there's the body itself. I remember reading a report in the file stating that to thwart the media, a decoy body was used.
A decoy body?
Yes, made of boxes and sheets to mislead the press fans waiting outside.
So they openly admit to using a fake body for the cameras? That's incredible.
Yes, they explicitly state they used a decoy to distract the press. But that just opens the door to the bigger question. At what point did the fake body stop being used?
And did it ever?
Well, when we look at the morgue photos, analysts have pointed out major discrepancies in the ear shape and the nose shape compared to known photos of Jeffrey Epstein.
The ear structure is like a fingerprint. It doesn't change. The tragus, the lobe, these are unique biometric markers. They don't just alter themselves.
Exactly. And the nose cartilage doesn't drastically reshape itself hours after death. So if the body in the morgue doesn't match the biometrics of the prisoner, and we have a record of a prisoner swap the night before.
The conclusion becomes very uncomfortable, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the Alive in Israel allegation. This is one of those things that sounds completely insane until you look at the digital footprint.
Kim Iverson did a great breakdown of this. We are talking about a Fortnite account.
The handle was Little Saint Jeff 1.
That's the one. It was Epstein's known handle. We found V-Buck purchases, that's the in-game currency for Fortnite, in his financial records dating all the way back to 2019.
Okay, so we know it's his account. It's tied to his credit cards, his emails. It's established.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. That account shows activity in 2024.
In 2024.
Yes. It was playing the game, leveling up during a season of Fortnite that wasn't even released until late 2023.
So a dead man is leveling up in a video game 4 years after he died.
That's what the data shows. And the IP address for that gameplay, it traces back to Israel.
Now, I have to push back here a little. I know Fortnite issued a denial. They claimed it was a different user who just changed their name to that handle.
They did, but the community notes on social media, the fact-checking feature, just tore that denial apart.
Ow.
The game history, the wrapped statistics for the year, showed that this account had a long-term continuous history consistent with the original user. It wasn't a fresh name change on a new account. It was a continuous progression of the same account that had been active since 2019.
So if Epstein was an intelligence asset, which is a whole other can of worms we need to open, and he was extracted from that prison,
Israel would be a logical location, wouldn't it? It's a non-extradition sanctuary for certain individuals, and if he had served intelligence interests there, it fits the geopolitical puzzle perfectly.
well, let's dive right into that puzzle. Because if he's alive, or even if he's dead, the network he built is clearly still active. Let's move to our next segment, the intelligence web. Because these emails, they aren't just about video games. They are about pizza.
Right. We have to adjust the code words. This has been a topic of internet investigation for a decade, often dismissed under the umbrella of Pizzagate. But analysts like Ben Swan and Liz Crocken have gone through the new email dumps, and the sheer volume is, well, it's undeniable.
We are talking about 9/11 emails containing the words pizza or cheese pizza
911.
in a professional context.
Right.
Between grown men, billionaires, politicians, academics.
Ben Swan makes a great point here. He says, search your own email. Go ahead. You might find a receipt for Domino's or Pizza Hut.
For sure.
You don't find 9/11 exchanges discussing pizza parties, requesting specific sauces, or talking about leftover steaks on a private island. It's just not how normal people talk.
It creates a pattern of syntax that mirrors exactly what was alleged back in 2016. Cheese pizza has long been alleged to be code for child pornography CP.
And when you see billionaires emailing about ordering pizzas to a private island that is now infamous for child trafficking, you have to be willfully blind to assume they are talking about pepperoni.
It's the context. There are emails about dreaming of your hot dog stand in Hawaii. It's completely nonsensical unless it's code.
Normal people don't communicate like this. Intelligence assets and organized crime syndicates do. It's designed to be deniable.
And this leads us directly to the bigger question. Who is Jeffrey Epstein really working for?
And this is where the mainstream media is finally catching up. The Telegraph, a major mainstream British newspaper, ran the headline, "Was Epstein a Mossad agent?"
That's a massive shift. A few years ago, that question would have been relegated to the fringe. Now it's a headline in the Telegraph.
Alexander Manuker and the folks at Navarro Media have been breaking this down. We have an FBI report from a confidential human source, a CHS.
And what did this source say?
This source claims that the attorney Alan Dershowitz explicitly said Epstein belonged to U.S. and allied intelligence services.
Allied intelligence service.
Which is, the diplomatic way of saying Mossad in this particular context. The report details that Dershowitz told the source Epstein was co-opted. And then you have to remember the Robert Maxwell link.
Ghislaine Maxwell's father.
A known super spy, a media mogul who worked for Mossad, among others. Well, Epstein was quoting a book about Robert Maxwell in his emails. He specifically quoted a section about Maxwell blackmailing Mossad and then being passed away, falling off his yacht under mysterious circumstances.
It sounds like Epstein was afraid of suffering the same fate.
He knew the game he was playing. He was gathering blackmail compromat on the world's most powerful people. That isn't something a finance guy does for fun. That is what an intelligence asset does to generate leverage for a state actor.
And the net he cast was incredibly wide. We have emails involving Noam Chomsky, the linguistic giant of the left, asking Epstein for advice on moving money and clearing commitments. And on the other side of the spectrum, we have Steve Bannon, the architect of the populist right, interviewing Epstein for reputation management.
William Van Wagenen from Syrian Analysis points this out brilliantly. It was never just about sex trafficking. That was the method. The goal was influence.
Epstein was a node.
A central node. He connected Chomsky and Bannon. He was the bridge between the far left and the far right.
But why? Why would an intelligence agency want to control both sides?
To shape public opinion. It's the ultimate control. If you control the key influencers on both sides of the aisle, you control the entire narrative. You can manufacture consent for a war, or you can manufacture dissent to destabilize a government, depending on what the agencies need at that moment.
So Epstein wasn't just a trafficker.
No, he was a broker of power. He had the ability to call in favors from the architects of both the socialist left and the nationalist right. That's a terrifying amount of influence.
And that power, that influence, is now exploding, specifically in the United Kingdom. Which brings us to our next segment, the fallout. The British government is teetering on the edge of collapse.
This is the ripple effect I mentioned earlier. The Epstein files didn't just stay in a Florida courthouse, they jumped the ocean and landed squarely on Downing Street.
The target is Peter Mandelson. The new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, appointed him as the UK ambassador to the United States. A huge, vital role.
It's a critical role. The U.S. ambassador is the linchpin of the special relationship between the two countries. It's not a ceremonial post.
But the new files reveal that Mandelson maintained a close friendship with Epstein after Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor. We are talking birthday messages, WhatsApp communications, an ongoing intimate friendship long after he was a known convicted pedophile.
And Starmer's government knew. That's the real scandal here. It's not just that Mandelson is tainted, it's that Starmer appointed him anyway. It suggests that the vetting process was either completely incompetent or, more likely, it was ignored because Mandelson, who is known as the Prince of Darkness in UK politics, was considered untouchable.
And now the heads are rolling. Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's chief of staff, has resigned just this morning.
Alexander Mercaris and the team at the Duran are calling him the fall guy. McSweeney released a statement saying he advised on the appointment and takes full responsibility.
But come on.
Exactly. You don't appoint an ambassador to the United States without the Prime Minister's explicit, detailed sign-off. It's one of the most important appointments a PM makes.
It feels like a sacrifice to save the king. Or the Prime Minister in this case. A classic political maneuver.
But it might not work this time. The political instability is spreading like wildfire. You have to look at what's happening in Scotland.
Anas Sarwar, the leader of Scottish Labour, he has publicly called for Keir Starmer to resign.
Not just criticized him, called for his resignation. He says it's necessary to save the party from electoral oblivion in Scotland.
That is a full-blown revolt. When your own regional leaders are calling for your head to save the party, you are in deep, deep trouble.
There are reports of a grim-faced cabinet meeting in London. The speculation is rampant that Starmer might not survive the week.
Just imagine that for a second. The government of the United Kingdom could collapse because of files released in the U.S. about a dead or not dead American financier.
It proves the global nature of this blackmail network. Epstein had hooks into the British elite just as deep, if not deeper, than he had into the American elite. Prince Andrew was just the tip of the iceberg. Mandelson is the whole brooch that could sink the entire ship. It shows that the leverage Epstein collected is still potent, still dangerous, even from beyond the grave.
So while London is burning politically, Washington is gearing up for actual fire. Let's move to segment 4, the war room. It's February 9, 2026, and Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to the White House.
This is the meeting everyone has been dreading. The diplomatic pleasantries are over. This is about hammering out the final details.
Analysts Rachel Blevins and Ehsan Safarnejad are reporting that despite all the talk of indirect negotiations and back channels, the U.S. is actively gearing up for regime change in Iran.
The rhetoric has shifted dramatically. We aren't hearing about containment or deterrence anymore. We're hearing the words strikes and degradation.
But there's this concept floating around Washington, the limited strike, the idea that the U.S. can just bomb a few nuclear sites, degrade Iran's capability, and then just leave.
And Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis says this is a complete and utter fallacy.
A dangerous fantasy, he called it.
It is. Davis makes the comparison to the situation in Venezuela. In Venezuela, the U.S. had an insider deal. They had neutralized the air defense systems before the operation even began, had a guy on the inside. It was a made-for-TV operation where the resistance was practically non-existent.
So what makes Iran a harder target? Why is it different?
Iran is a whole different ballgame. They have hardened defenses. They had advanced air defense systems like the S-300 and potentially even the S-400. They have dug their most critical facilities deep into mountains.
So physically, it's a tougher nut to crack.
Physically, yes. But more importantly, geopolitically, they have no exit ramp. If the U.S. strikes, the Iranian leadership views it as an existential threat to their nation and their government. They cannot just take a punch and move on. Their credibility would be shot.
And the Iranian foreign minister stated explicitly that they will strike back at every U.S. base in the region if they are attacked. Not some, but all of them.
That is the escalation ladder. It's immediate and it's massive. You hit a nuclear site in Iran, they hit a base in Qatar or Bahrain or Iraq, then the U.S. has to respond to protect its troops.
And suddenly you are in a regional war that makes Iraq look like a small-scale skirmish.
There is no such thing as a limited strike against a nation with advanced ballistic missile capabilities that can reach all of your forward operating bases. It's a myth.
And it's not just open warfare we need to worry about. There is a covert war happening right now, isn't there?
There is. We have these stunning reports from the FSB, the Russian Security Service, which were cited by Alex Christoforou. They are alleging an assassination attempt on General Alexeyev.
This is a huge story that is being almost completely buried in the West. General Alexeyev is a key Russian negotiator. The attempt happened in Abu Dhabi.
In neutral territory.
The FSB claims the Ukrainian SBU and Polish intelligence orchestrated the hit.
And the clear implication is that the CIA knew about it, or at least gave it a green light. If you were trying to assassinate negotiators in a neutral country like the UAE, you are trying to sabotage any possibility of peace talks.
You're trying to ensure that there is no diplomatic solution.
You're trying to burn the bridge behind you so that the only way forward is into a wider conflict. It's a classic move to force a confrontation.
It's pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. And speaking of which, there is an economic war on Iran happening simultaneously.
Judge Andrew Napolitano and former CIA officer John Kiriakou have been discussing this. The Iranian real is crashing, and it's not by accident.
No, the new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, actually admitted it. He said, on the record, that they are creating economic chaos to spur street protests.
It's the classic playbook. You crash the economy, you make the people desperate, you hope they riot in the streets, and then you use those riots as a pretext for a humanitarian intervention.
The Mossad CIA playbook, as they call it.
But in Iran, it might just backfire. It could rally the population against the external enemy. When people can't feed their families because of foreign sanctions, they don't always blame their own government, they blame the country imposing the sanctions.
Well, domestic chaos isn't just a foreign policy tool. Back here in the U.S., things are tense. Segment 5. The U.S. is facing its own internal crisis. We have to talk about the Lion King scandal.
This is one of the most bizarre and frankly disturbing moments for the White House in some time. It feels like a scene from a political satire, but it's all too real.
Okay, so for those who missed it, President Trump posted a video on his Truth Social platform. It starts as a typical election fraud video, laying out various claims. But it ends with a scene from the movie The Lion King that depicts the Obamas in a stunningly racist manner.
The monkey and ape imagery. It's the oldest, ugliest racist trope in the book. It's inflammatory and completely indefensible.
Initially, the White House went into damage control mode. They claimed Trump didn't see the end of the clip. They blamed a junior staffer. They said he posted the video for the election fraud content. He didn't watch it all the way to the end.
Which is the standard political defense, right? Plausible deniability. The principal is unaware of the full content.
But then Trump himself goes on camera and just blows that entire defense out of the water. The team at Breaking Points analyzed this. Trump doubled down. He said, I didn't make a mistake. And then he said, nobody knew it was at the end, which directly contradicts his own press secretary's statement.
This signals a deeply fractured White House. You have the professional staff trying to do damage control, trying to maintain some semblance of political decorum, and you have the president actively undermining their efforts.
It makes the whole administration look chaotic and uncoordinated.
And it alienates allies. It burns political capital on something completely unnecessary.
We're already seeing that. Senators Tim Scott and Roger Wicker, key Republicans, are publicly distancing themselves from the White House over this.
And that matters. It matters a lot because Trump needs that political capital to push his agenda, especially on foreign policy. If he burns his bridges with the Senate GOP over self-inflicted wounds like this, he becomes isolated.
And a weakened White House is a dangerous White House.
It becomes desperate, and a desperate leader might look for a distraction abroad, like a conflict with Iran.
Yet at home, the American people are desperate too. Let's look at the economic reality on the ground. The outlet World Affairs in Context put out some frankly terrifying data. U.S. consumer debt is now hitting a record $24 billion per month.
That's not sustainable. It can't be. The stock market might be hitting records, but that reflects the health of the top 10% of the economy. The real economy, the one where people buy groceries and gas and pay rent, is running on credit cards.
$24 billion a month in new debt. That is a society in survival mode.
It creates an incredibly fragile society.
Yeah.
If there is an external shock, say a war with Iran that causes oil prices to spike overnight, that debt bubble just bursts. People can't pay. The defaults begin to cascade.
And then the record economy evaporates in a puff of smoke.
We are walking a very thin tightrope with no safety net below.
And while people are struggling financially, their civil liberties are taking a major hit. The publication Zetio had an interview with the author Don Winslow. He's been receiving credible death threats for criticizing the administration. He's had to cancel his entire book tour over security concerns.
This is the normalization of political violence. When authors can't speak publicly because they fear for their physical safety, you have crossed a very dark line into authoritarianism. It's not just mean tweets or online harassment anymore. It's the suppression of speech through the credible threat of fear.
And the courts seem to be moving in that direction as well. Katie Fang from MSNBC reported on a Fifth Circuit court ruling that essentially strips due process rights from migrants at the border.
And that sets a dangerous precedent. If you can strip due process rights from one group of people, you can eventually strip them from others. It's a signal of judicial overreach that aligns perfectly with an executive branch that desires total control.
It's a slow erosion of the checks and balances that are supposed to protect everyone.
Which brings us to the final piece of this global puzzle, segment 6. Global shifts. The rest of the world is watching all of this chaos, and they are making their moves.
Specifically China.
Yes. Alex Christoforou reported that China has issued direct orders to its state banks to slash their holdings of U.S. Treasury bonds. They are actively dumping the dollar.
And this is the strategic response to everything we've just been talking about, isn't it?
It's the only logical response. China saw what the U.S. and Europe did to Russia, freezing hundreds of billions of dollars of their assets, seizing their reserves overnight. They know that if tensions over Taiwan or the South China Sea escalate, their money is next on the chopping block.
So they are getting out before they can be trapped.
They are getting out. They are moving into gold. They are moving into hard assets. They are de-dollarizing their reserves as quickly as they can without crashing the market.
What does that mean for the U.S.?
It weakens the U.S. dollar's status as the global reserve currency. If China, one of our biggest creditors, stops buying our debt, our interest rates here at home have to go up. Inflation goes up. That $24 billion a month in consumer debt becomes even more expensive to service.
It's a financial weapon aimed right at the heart of the American economy.
It absolutely is. And India is making its own moves too. Reuters reported that India is pausing its purchases of Russian oil for March and April.
Now, on the surface, some people are reading this as India breaking with Russia and siding with the West.
But you have to look closer at the timing. It's a temporary pause. They are in the middle of negotiating a major trade deal with the Trump administration.
So they're playing both sides.
Of course they are. It's transactional diplomacy. India is looking out for India's interests. They pause the oil to make President Trump happy. They get the trade deal signed, and then predictably that Russian oil will start flowing again.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a lot of ground today. It's almost overwhelming.
We have. It's a lot to process.
It feels like the week of February 9, 2026 marks the moment the hidden world finally crashed into the public world. The intelligence blackmail operations of Epstein are no longer a secret. They're collapsing governments in real time. The secret war negotiations with Iran are becoming public threats of annihilation.
The key takeaway here, the one word for the week, is leverage. That's what this is all about.
Leverage.
Epstein was about leverage using blackmail to control elites. China dumping treasury bonds is financial leverage against the threat of U.S. sanctions. The threat of war with Iran is military leverage to try and force regime change. Everyone is playing their ace card right now, all at the same time, because the fundamental rules of the game are changing. The old post-Cold War order is over.
And if the old rules don't apply, then anything can happen.
Exactly. We're in completely uncharted waters.
One final thought for you to chew on this week. If Jeffrey Epstein was indeed an intelligence asset, and if he was potentially still alive or was successfully extracted from that prison, who else was extracted? Who else is out there watching this global house of cards collapse from a safe distance, holding the files and the secrets that haven't been released yet?
That is the question that should keep everyone up at night. Because if one key piece of the puzzle can be quietly removed from the board, others can be too. And the files they hold might be the ones that drop next week.
If you found this analysis valuable, hit the plus or follow button on your podcast app and give us a like. Subscribe to the Hot News channel for more deep dives. Until we meet again. Goodbye.